look here or there.
It
doesn't matter. Yeah, everybody's like, where do I look? Hey, guys.
Hi.
All right, so we are filming a episode of It's Funny You Ask. I have to look at my clock today because my computer is not keeping track for me like normal, and we like to keep it at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So keep everything going. So I'm going to introduce, this is Tanya Green. And Tanya, okay, so one of the first things I love to talk about is how I know people. So I know you from an introduction from our friend Tara, I think, originally. But I feel like I kind of know of you before that, maybe. I don't know how that would be, but I feel like that's a thing. So Tara said you should get to know Kendra. And so you've got like a background in all kinds of things that I have a background in, some of the same. Yeah. But you've got a background in direct sales. And actually, funny story, she had asked me about selling the same line that I sell, and I was like, I don't think that's your path. So people always ask me, like, will I be honest? Girl, yeah, I will.
Yes.
I will tell you, no, I don't think you want this path. This isn't right. So give me like how we would even dive into how do we dive into who Tanya Green is. So who is Tanya Green today?
Tanya Green today is, well, an unapologetic person and living my life how I feel best fit, literally on a day-to-day basis. Not looking too far into the future and trying to be super present in what's happening right now, because there's been so much change in life that I feel like I've always been a huge goal setter. So that's the past Tanya Green goal setter, and I still am, but it's just in a different way now. Mom of 3, bonus mom of 1, wife of a culinary instructor and chef,
and an immigrant.
Yeah, and we really have like 5 kids total, because we helped raise one of my son's friends last year and graduated him too. So
can't get rid of him.
Yeah. I mean, so who am I now? A sales professional.
You've always worked in sales.
Yes.
In some capacity.
I have a huge passion for it. It's one of those easy things for me, which most people can't say that.
No, actually, most salespeople that I work with will tell me I am not a salesperson.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that, you kind of embrace sales.
Yeah.
So, my most recent experience, we met maybe, I think it was about 5 years ago, about the time I was starting my direct sales journey. We met. And our paths keep crossing. I think you said that today, that one of those people that keeps showing up in your life, and like you kind of keep showing up in my life as well. So it's fun. I mean, sometimes you're like, why won't this chick go away?
Sometimes that might be me.
But you also
relentless.
Yeah. Oh, good at sales. The qualities needed to be good at sales. Relentless, takes no for an answer. Is okay. And I don't know if you saw a live video I did the other day. Somebody was telling me about this top salesperson in their company. It's an insurance company. Like, sounds to me like the worst thing ever to sell. Who wants to?
I tried that for like half a second.
You dabbled?
Well, I took the test, but I never.
You never.
Yeah, I never
pulled the trigger.
I referred a lot of people.
Yeah, he said their top person, number 1 in their big ginormous company's close rate was 12%.
Yeah,
and I'm like, whoa. Dude's literally failing 88% of the time.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of sales in general. I mean, maybe not. That's a little on the extreme side of the no, but
you hear it a lot. And what's really cool about that is in present day Tanya's life, I am a momager essentially of 2 kids.
Oh yeah, your kids do like their talent.
Yeah, modeling, acting, talent, and so I've been able to encourage them in that, and hearing the no's and kind of prepping them for that and what's going to happen. Because...
Okay, number 1, what is the one thing, if you could impart one piece of advice on people on getting okay with hearing no?
Oh man, I think,
or 2 or 5.
I was just trained by some of the best. It initially started really in the network marketing industry, and literally trained to hear the no's, be okay with it, and understand that just leads you to the next best yes. And usually those yeses are so much more rewarding because of all of the no's. You heard yes
all the time.
Yeah. And so it's really cool. And to be able to prep my kids and help them see that it's okay. It's not personal to me, but I only learned to not take those no's personally when I understood, like, the book, The 4 Agreements. It's huge in my life, and I had a mentor introduce when I was at the worst in my life.
Right.
I mean, maybe even the worst person, let's just be honest. Like, I had a mentor that really spoke into my life, and she's like, you have to read this book. And it just leveled the playing field. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, friend, you know, in my present day sales, like, hey, friend, like, do you want this? No? Okay.
Great.
No harm, no foul.
Well, it helps you. What the 4 Agreements did for me, that book was help me understand the perspective of the other person. Mm-hmm. That they're not coming, like, you know, when you're having a conversation, you come at this person this way, and have the conversation, and they say no, and you take it at face value. But really, they're coming from a whole new direction with all their own experiences and past experiences, current experience, like that. So that was really powerful. So if you haven't read that book, I guess obviously we're going to plug the 4 Agreements. And, you know, someday when my podcast is super popular, they will wish they plugged this. So,
right.
You have a great past. I love learning. I actually really enjoy learning about your past because you've done some. I mean, it's all over the place, Tanya. You have been a chef. Mm-hmm. You have been in the Coast Guard. Yeah. You've married an immigrant, which, I mean, I hate to like spotlight that, but it comes in your experiences because of that. Like some of the things that you know about that we've talked about just in happenstance. I was talking about shipping one time, and you were like, oh yeah, I know about that.
Oh, the shipping containers. Yeah.
Like, what? Or, you know, just odd. I mean, that probably doesn't make sense to anybody here, but because of that, you know about that. You also have firsthand experience with racism that maybe you wouldn't have had you not married an immigrant. Mm-hmm. And like your perspective on that is really awesome for somebody that doesn't have that perspective, myself included, to have a better understanding, because I think you see both sides. Mm-hmm. So, and that's really powerful. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, go back to Coast Guard. How did that happen?
So, born and raised Iowa. Yeah. Little town of Tama.
I'm gonna go work. I'm gonna go work on the sea, Mom.
Well, I had a love for all things my entire childhood, ocean life, and
like, were you the kid with the beach bedroom, or you collected the seashells?
Dolphins. Yeah. Little Mermaid was like my hero. Right. Even in
as an adult.
Because
you were an adult when that came out.
Yeah. Literally, I was like 16, 17 when the first time it came out, and that was my whole bedroom was wallpapered that, thanks to an amazing bonus mom who just loved me in those ways. I wanted nothing more to get the heck out of Iowa, but I wasn't necessarily intelligent in the school smarts ways, but I loved the concept of like marine biology, marine science. And so I did one of those things that I don't even know if they do it anymore, those things where you fill in with your school counselor what you love, what you're good at.
Right. And I love dolphins, Little Mermaid. I went the hell out of Iowa.
I loved journalism, writing for the newspaper, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then
we would have been in
that same it popped club. Out, like all of these things popped out, you know, whatever it was. Oh, and the Coast Guard. And somehow my dad, as we're reading through this paper, he's like, the Coast Guard. That sounds interesting. What is that?
Yeah. So, yeah. I would say a lot of Irish probably have no idea.
Not at that time.
Right.
In my lack of awareness, I thought that it was like Baywatch. You know, I'm going to be in one of those. I was in the swim team too. So I'm going to be in one of those hot red swimsuits, you know. Now my hair's long. Then it wasn't. Flowing through. Yeah, David Hasselhoff. Yeah, like the whole thing.
Did you have the Coast Guard bob?
Oh, man. My pictures. I shared one.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Every time I see somebody in the Coast Guard, they had that bob, that chin one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, some very interesting decisions in hair back then, because you thought you were doing the right thing to make it easier, and then it's like, well, what the? Oh, my gosh. Yeah. So I joined.
Right out of high school?
Yes. And I knew I didn't want to go to college right away anyways. I wasn't prepared for that. I partied a lot. And so
college wasn't I enrolled, but I don't think I showed up minus a semester. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, and I'm not I don't like to discourage people from it because there's reasons.
Right.
I mean, I would never want a medical professional to, work on me without that degree. And
I would not want
go
an
to
engineer
college.
Building my roads without that degree.
Yeah,
yes.
I did end up going to college eventually, but I wasn't ready yet. I didn't know, even at that point, I was just, I lived a lot of life and had a lot of fun. And I was always like literally in the moment, never thinking about the next day.
Risk taker?
Oh,
Would you call yourself a risk?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
you kind of still are.
I am.
Yeah, I would call you a risk taker, a little more calculated.
Yeah.
As you
At that point, there was not much thought into anything I was doing, which is not always great.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up getting stationed in the fabulous Florida Keys. I know, please don't hate on me for that. Paradise, what I found out later on in life, comes at a price. But
you have a big
also,
heart for the Keys, though.
I learned so much in that 4 years, and then I went on to do my 4 years reserve time while I was going to school. And yeah,
So you were enlisted for 4 years,
yeah,
and then 4 years of reserve time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your service, by the way. I think
I feel so ungrateful, though. I mean, so like undeserving
when people
of
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, because I know that there
get
are
that
people.
from you, yeah.
I know what's happening currently and what's happened in our past, and I feel like the Coast Guard does its part, but I lived in a time.
Everybody counts.
The first real experience I had with that, with kind of the panic, is when 9/11 happened. I was still in the reserves, and I had my son as a single mom, and they called and they said, you need to get all the power of attorney stuff ready. You need to have a plan for your son. So I had
because
to
the Coast
sign
Guard
that
protects
over.
Our soil.
Yeah.
And that's never been threatened.
No.
So that was the first time you were like, oh crap. Wow.
Yeah.
I bet that was terrifying.
It was.
Because the Coast Guard probably seems like the safe bet.
Yeah,
right?
it was the safe bet.
Yeah. Most people.
I thought it was going to be like Baywatch. Remember?
Well, you brought up that during this time, you were a single mom.
Yeah.
So your son is now just
19.
and he's just gone off to the real big world by himself, which we kind of touched on briefly when she and I were talking. He's pursuing his dreams to be an actor, model in California, and you have sent him off to the big, scary world of California. So you're doing that empty, well, it's not empty nest.
Oh, we have so many kids. It's like, it's not empty nest. It's kind of like, oh my goodness, our grocery bill went down a little bit.
By the time the little one leaves, you're going to be like, bye.
Oh, man.
Put
yes.
her right out.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and your grocery bill with the son. So, talk to me about that a little bit. How did you, that had to have shaped you.
Girl.
Single mom, in the military,
yeah,
living Baywatch life.
So I did my 4 years, and then I decided to go to culinary school. So I went from the Florida Keys to
while you were
Fort
in the
Lauderdale.
reserves, you were going to culinary school. Why culinary school? Why did that draw you?
So while I was in the Coast Guard, I realized military life wasn't for me. I'm too much of like my own leader to be led in those kind of ways. And I was like, I can't imagine doing this for the rest of my life. So I decided to do like the on-the-job training option, because the things that I actually came in the Coast Guard for marine science or their version of like what a newspaper editor would have been in that stance, they wanted me at 18 years old to commit to 8 total years of active duty. Because the Coast Guard's so small, it's not like the other ones where you have to rank a certain thing on a test and then you get your job. It's like you have to work and then you'll get your job. Yeah. So
totally
so I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know what I want to do tomorrow. You're asking me to commit to 8 years of active duty? No.
Right.
So I did on-the-job training because I had a friend that was a cook, and I think food service specialist was my title. And
but 2020, Tanya,
and I did it.
Still loves, that obviously really shaped you, because you are like feeding people is your love language.
Yeah,
it
is.
Like you take that very seriously. Every time you have an event, you always like surround it around, good food and not necessarily all comfort food, but like healthy food options. You're very
things to
aware.
fuel you.
Yeah.
To make you feel good.
You've
and
connected
also,
like that, like body, mind, the energy you get out has everything to do with what you put in your mouth too.
Yeah.
So I've noted that that must have started then.
Essentially, yeah. I figured out how to feed people well in the Coast Guard, because there's nothing worse than having really crappy food when you have been out all night on a boat waiting for immigrants to cross the waters, to be on a boat. And it is actually really cold on the ocean in the middle of the night in the Florida Keys. It's really cold, like bone-chilling cold.
So it's funny you said that. So the Coast Guard is like protecting the borders from immigrants coming across from, and your husband's from Jamaica.
Yeah.
He probably has family and friends with that story.
Not necessarily that kind of story, because Jamaica it's not very common. Haiti and Cubans. And at that time, that was the biggest part of our job. It impacted everything. It made me see people in a different way. It made me understand immigration, and unfortunately right now it's a really hard discussion to have with people in our current political, it just is. And nobody really understands. And I have friends who have been in the Coast Guard that feel very differently than I do about it. But
I was going to say, you could have come out of that experience feeling like that the immigrants, the people on the other side were the enemy. But you definitely have a big heart for those people. And I
think what happened is I was 18 in the Florida Keys. The main things that people did were partying and fishing. I didn't like to fish because I don't actually love to eat most fish. I like a few types, but most. And so that wasn't fun for me. And I was so young, I wasn't partying. So I actually befriended a lot of like younger people in the community, like 18-year-olds, high school seniors and things like that, and got to know them on a personal level. And their families were directly affected by immigration. And then, quite honestly, just seeing the people coming across the waters completely sunburned and saltwater burned on inner tube rafts. I try to think and put myself in that situation if I ever were even close to experiencing something like that, knowing that I was boarding something and crossing an ocean on something like that just to risk my life. Like, is it really that bad? Is my life ever that bad?
Wow.
And
has that impacted you ever since? Like, is that something
I'll never forget those images.
Yeah.
Happened in the reserves. I happened to be at the Fort Lauderdale unit when the whole Elian Gonzalez thing happened, and the Fort Lauderdale Coast Guard was the one that got him and brought him in, and I happened to be on my duty that weekend there.
Wow.
So it's really cool.
Impactful.
History. The drug trade was kind of just ending then over the waters, how serious it was, but right before then, there had been huge corruption with the Coast Guard too. And so seeing kind of how that impacted people's attitudes at my unit, people that I worked with and stuff, it was just, so much. And I learned so much, and that's where I really say my catapult to confidence really came. And because the recruiter that recruited me didn't think I was going to last. He told me that. And I don't think he realized how determined of a person I am when I make up my mind I'm going to do something. So yeah.
Or maybe he fueled that. So you married your husband. Your husband's Jamaican.
Yeah.
And your husband, when did he come to the U.S.? How old is he?
Well, he was an adult, college student. So I think he's been here now. We always try to do the math, and
but he wasn't a child.
15 years
and
ago.
And if you ever meet him, he still has a great Jamaican accent. Like listening to him talk
speak clearly so people understand.
I don't always understand everything he says, but I love the way he talks. I think it's
most
great.
people do.
Yeah. So I guess that's helpful. And he teaches culinary. So did you guys meet in culinary school? Or?
No. So after I got out of the Coast Guard, I went to culinary school. I continued culinary school, had my son as, basically raised him as a single mom, with huge support of my family, even though they were 1,200 miles away.
Yeah.
And then went back to the Keys because I had made so many friends there. It was like a second home to me, and I was so proud that I was not coming back to Iowa.
Never.
No, ever.
Should I pan outside?
I know, looking at the dreary sky. But So then went back down to the Florida Keys. I managed a few restaurants. I had a desire to open a catering company, but I hadn't yet done that. And I went to work at a resort for a job that they hired me for that never happened. And so then they put me in a position that I was so unqualified for. But it was, at that time, my life was really, really fake it till you make it in so many ways that I just did it. Well, my husband will tell you a story about how we met. And his version is very interesting, and it's so... It's so not true. He said that I was the lunch lady. So we worked at this huge resort, and he said I was pushing a lunch cart and strolling along, you know. I guess he noticed my butt, and and he knew. He said that day I knew she was somebody I was going to marry. My version of that was I passed by him and he was cooking something, and I smelled saffron right away. And if there's anything I'm more repulsed by in scents, it's saffron. And I said, "What are you cooking?" And he said, "Coca-Cola rice." I'm like, "What's that?" I've never, in his really thick accent at that point. And what's that? I mean, he was pretty hot. So, but I was not impressed. I was not in that space in my life where I was even thinking about a guy, because I was opening my catering company. I was working full time. I was a single mom doing all the things.
You got time for that.
I was like, I don't like saffron, and that's what it smells like. And that was the end of our conversation until a hurricane hit, and we were kind of forced to be without electricity among a bunch of friends with a whole lot of wine and a whole lot of chefs. And yeah, the rest is history.
That's so funny. So you mentioned, you alluded to earlier that the price of living in paradise, and that's, I mean, both the sacrifice, the price of the, living near the water, seeing all of the immigration, and the struggles that people go through trying to do that, and then hurricanes, natural disasters, all of that, and everything that comes into play. That was
cost of living that will absolutely kill you, and about did. It about killed me.
Is that why you came back? Physically.
And well, ultimately, yeah, because there was a cost for everything. Mm-hmm. And our marriage was really struggling, and I was like postpartum, because now speed up life to baby number 3, and I didn't have...
Baby 3 is your daughter?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't know, like, how to really handle all of the things, our business. I was also consulting for another food service business at that time. He was a full-time school teacher. We're trying to do our catering company, and we were deemed successful. I mean, $250,000 in sales our first year in business. You know, it was... Yeah, everybody from the community looked at us like we were a success, and I was at my lowest point in life. And I was so proud at that time of my life. I would have never said that I was depressed, but I look back and I'm like, oh yeah,
on the outside, so proud.
That was it.
And I mean, I think that's where your real desire to work with, fast forward to 2020, Tanya, you own something called the She Collaborative. You do coaching for small business owners. You do goal setting workshops. You do several workshops, vision board workshops, and all of these things. And one of the things you get at that I was really impressed with at your at the goal setting workshop that I went to was you get at the root of what's going on with people, and let people know it's okay if your highlight reel doesn't match reality, and how do we get to a place where you're comfortable and happy, and like you really take the veil off. Like, this must be where it came from. I mean, this real struggle. And I mean, is there a business owner that you see out there that does not go through that struggle period?
No, at some point they all have. And even those who look successful on the outside and may seem that way, maybe they've hit some instant real good numbers, or they took off really fast. Eventually, at some point, the whole facade of it kind of catches up, and you're like, every person has their different breaking point in life where they think things should or look a certain way, and then they're not. And what do you do with that? And how do you authentically and vulnerably move through that? Because I mean, there are so many people still that can't believe that I share what I share with people, or that I'm as open as I am about what my life experiences are, even currently.
Well, let me share a little honesty with you. this is a little vulnerable, sharing with somebody. She could punch me in the face in a second, I don't know. But when I first met you and was going through some things, or, you know, attending some of your workshops, I've always really believed in what you had going on. But the one that I went to, you just kept telling us that you were a mess, that you were a hot mess, and like that was kind of part of it. And I was like, well, why do I want to learn from a hot mess? And I understand now that it was like you working through being both authentic and sharing the other side. And what has happened since, this last one I went to, I couldn't tell her enough how like empowering it was. And for me, I feel like I kind of got to be like in a special seat because I've seen even your progression as a coach come along. And I mean, coaching, people ask me all the time if I have a coaching business. Hell no.
Yeah.
Don't want that.
Yeah.
Because because you have to get at all of the roots of things and being willing to share, and you have been really willing to share a lot of that. And life is messy, and but your brand now and how you've evolved it to a place of, you know, yep, I may not be all put together all the time, but I can help you make sense out of what you're going through because I've probably been through it.
Yeah. And also learning the
and you're trained.
tools. So yeah, the training, my foundation of coaching, beside the School of Hard Knocks, right, in life, is from the John Maxwell philosophy of leadership. And everything rises and falls on leadership. But first leading ourselves and getting so good at that. And it takes you like breaking apart everything you really know and leading yourself really well first, showing up for people, that integrity. And I don't think I was fully aware of all of that until just this most recent transition in life and business, and seeing that, wow, like everything that I've done up to this point led me to it. But there was a pinnacle moment where I was prepping for a mastermind group and we were going through the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I was walking them through it. I've read this book and listened to it multiple times. And it wasn't until then when I really was like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. And that's the keys. And understanding for most people, because we live in such a society where everybody's pulling at us, and social media and all the things, which are all good and bad. There's greatness and bad parts of it all at the same time. Right. So how to navigate that? The only way is finding out what's really important to you and establishing and defining those things and being able to live your life that way so that you can say no to the things that don't matter. And so then you get a bigger yes and a bigger why behind what you're really trying to do and who you are as a person. But it took all of that to lead to that moment where you were sitting in that room and just impacted. Like, whoa. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that because having the insight from you meant the world to me. And there's nothing better when you have like people in your corner that are like cheering you on, because I mean every day as an entrepreneur you question, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah. You can swear it's fine. Rita ruined it. She ruined my rating. It's now R. It's fine.
But you know, it's so hard. And so having a group of people who are speaking into, and sometimes it's that honest feedback in a loving way. I mean, you were completely, I don't know if you were okay with telling me like all the things you had been to before. You had heard nothing like that day. And for me, that's okay, and critical feedback. And I think
like you stepped into your stride. It was like watching you like catch your rhythm, like like in the process. And I think like I go back to that. I think it's a Marianne Williamson quote of, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. It is that we are powerful beyond measure. And it was like you stepping into your power for yourself, like not relying on anyone or anything else to get there, be it your husband or a business partner or whatever outside, people that were attending, the influence of others. That was the event. You've had events where you've had big speakers. You've had events where you've, big, powerful, like all the social media cred speakers, and this one was just you. It was just you, and the power was you.
Thank you.
And that's it. Like I was like,
I took a huge risk. There's never been a time that I haven't collaborated with somebody or partnered. I just knew so strongly that she collaborative, she deserved to be able to have an environment of goal setting and visualization.
Otherwise, you were going to put it off. It was going to, and you kind of put it together quickly.
Oh man,
too quick. Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
too quick. I mean,
people come, but it was quick, and on the other side of it, you were. So that was like, it was really interesting to watch, and I was like, oh, she's better on her own. I'm not on your own, but you were better when you took the lead and you took the stand to be the one that people came for.
In my own self, instead of like also sometimes like blaming someone else if something didn't work out. And you know, now in building something new, and I constantly go back and forth. Am I Tanya Green coaching? Am I She Collaborative? But now I've kind of discovered that yes, I am Tanya Green, transformational coach. And I happen to be building an organization called She Collaborative that I don't know what's going to exactly happen. But that part of it is not for me. That's for her, knowing that she needs certain things in this world to be successful, you know, so, besides me.
Tanya invited me today to speak for She Collaborative does a monthly coffee get together. What would you call it? Yeah, collaborative. I don't know.
Cultivate and collaborate. It's kind of on the premise of meet people in an authentic way, learn something, because I want to add value to people all the time.
Right.
Valuable business skills, life skills. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes I'm like, am I a business coach? Am I a life coach? No. I am a coach for her because there are so many different facets of life. Yeah, what does she need? And that's the key, figuring out her success, her priorities. But in that, it's providing a space where people, number one, I can add value and create a platform for people to present ideas, but then also for her to come in and learn valuable skills.
And that room was full.
It was so cool.
That's one of the things like that, I mean, I think is really powerful is that it wasn't that other things didn't work.
Yeah.
It was that you weren't standing in your own power.
Yeah.
It wasn't that, I mean, with that, it was you, and then that room was full. Like we couldn't fit everybody
journey.
in there. Yeah.
You know, and that's for me what it's all about. It's embracing those moments and knowing that all of it leads up to like what it looks like today.
Right.
That the crap that life sends your way, there's a bigger it's so for you, and it's not against you. Even the hardest times.
In the moment, it doesn't feel for you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's
I had to go through it. I had conversations with you, and I've sought out mentorship and coaching on my own to always try to keep my ego in check about those things too.
Which is it's awesome. So it's been really cool seeing you grow. And I mean, you came back to Iowa with your 3 babies and brought your Jamaican husband to this place. What was his first winter like?
Oh, he's like, I feel so depressed. I don't know why.
You're missing the sun.
Yeah, sunshine has been a part of his life all the time.
Yeah.
And so it was a difficult road. We had our own little bumps along the way. Totally fine.
Little
Go
bumps,
there.
big
It's
bumps.
Okay. Big, huge bumps. But
you want me to talk about your big bump?
Whatever. I don't care.
Actually, I'm going to. If you don't care, if you really don't care, I will, because I have seen your strength as a woman, as a wife, as a determining what your priorities are through this situation in such a powerful way. And it's unique, but I think it's one that every woman goes, oh my God, that's my biggest fear. Oh my God, how would that happen? So you came to Iowa with your 3 babies, but and you're married to the same man you came to Iowa with. She doesn't have 2 Jamaican husbands.
Little Jerry Springer.
Yeah. So you came with your 3 babies and your husband, and you're a bonus mom.
Yeah.
And that happened because during your marriage, your husband has another child.
Yes.
And you are still married to that man, and he's alive. And from what I understand, all of his parts are intact.
Luckily. There are moments. There were moments.
I can imagine the moments because I think every woman goes through in her head, what would I do if? And every woman says, I'm out.
Yeah.
To hell with him.
Yeah.
And when you told me your story, I was like, Tanya, how are you still here? And you talked to me about priorities and deciding what was important to you. And you decided my marriage is important to me and I'm working on it. And that was super easy. Now the decision's made, you move on, right?
Yeah. it wasn't always that way. Oh goodness.
Even through, how old is she? How old is she now?
She's 5. Maylee's 5. Yeah.
So the 5 years, and I'm sorry, I know that brings up some emotion,
it's
but
okay.
I love your story that you have. Now you can strongly say, this is where my commitment was. And I'm not saying that that's for everybody.
No.
That's not everybody's path. Like, girl, get the F out if you need to get the F out. But
yeah, here's the thing. I, as well as my husband, were products of like dysfunctional marriages and relationships growing up as kids. Yeah. I mean, who isn't anymore? And so what we had seen didn't prepare us for what a real marriage should look like.
Sure.
And I don't use that as an excuse for any of it. No, there is no excuse, right? But we didn't know what we didn't know at that time, and we thought if we worked really hard and we were good parents in the sense of our kids were fed, they were clothed, they did all the fun kid things, that eventually things would work out for us because we're just going to muscle through everything.
Right.
Miserable at that, both of us in our own ways. This had been the case of our entire marriage. So we didn't even have a blissful part. It was like we had a kid, we decided to get married because of immigration issues, we'll figure it out. And
so it kind of peaked here.
7 years. So any of you that hear about that 7 year lull,
that was true for you.
It was so true. And I didn't understand it. But what I did know is that, of course, like, your goal in life, I think sometimes we view it as happiness, but what does that look like? And what I found through the process of deep, deep counseling and working on myself is that, my issues were just as big, even though I didn't physically step out. It all came to a halt when
So taking responsibility in your own issues of the marriage. I mean, and how hard is that when you're like, but what he did was so bad.
Yeah.
Like, you could never do anything that bad.
Yeah.
So that,
it's...
and learning to love this human being that came into the story, who is completely innocent. And, but now not only do you have her, but you have her mother and her family and everything that's attached.
Wow.
And you didn't ask for that.
We're a big tribe. No, I didn't. But what I did ask for in life was a life that means something. And when I thought about the way that I was raised by an amazing bonus mom as well, my mom's always been a part of my life, but an amazing bonus mom as well, I said, you know what, we have one shot really, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could not be here, to give this little girl the best chance at a good life, and a life different than theirs.
And honestly, you
and for our kids,
your legacy.
Our kids to see an example of a healthy marriage. Yes, they went through it too and saw it all, but then
and how hard to explain, and
to break those chains of generational sin and divorce, and hurt, and it was like we had to make a conscious decision, and we make that conscious decision every single day still. Well, don't you 7 years later,
even if you don't have that going on in your life, that's the truth. And it had to come to that, and it
had to, because I'm such a strong, controlling human by nature that it was like whammo. Like,
so it was
a
big mirror to your face too, and it's so amazing, and what your kids will learn by you going through that, by you getting through it. I know somebody in my life that's been through the same thing, and I have shared your story, and I don't know if it would be easier to walk out, to be honest with you. Walking away has its own problems. And having this, broken family has its own set of problems. But the fact that you guys made the conscious effort to bring it together, and you're clear that it's not perfect still.
Oh man, it's a daily walk. And just when we think we're coasting and things are good, something will come up. And I don't mean something like those things, but it didn't start out of nothing. All of this was a buildup of 7 years of crap that we both weren't honoring each other. By the world's eyes, he's a good person. He's a hard worker. He doesn't barely drink. We have a funny story about that. But, you know, those type of things. He never did drugs. He worked so hard, so incredibly hard.
So he's not the kind of person that's just stepping out of his marriage because, like, and again, no excuse.
No excuse. And I'm a hard worker, and I'm
and you're
a good mom, and I'm, you know, all of those things. But what we weren't doing is taking time to do the stuff, like to date, to comfort one another, and not for each other, but knowing that if I'm taking care of myself well, then you will be okay. And then if you're taking care of you, I think it's Jim Rohn that said, if you take care of you and I take care of me, together we can do something great. And I think that's so true. And it's like neither one of us, we're just trying to hustle and muscle through life, and we're so
and I
busy,
can say I'm guilty
and all of that. Yeah,
100%.
I think everybody is. And also, again, like not being an advocate for people who are unsafe in their marriage. Like we didn't have those type of issues. He was never abusive, never in the least bit, like nothing like that. And I was probably more verbally abusive and more like, I'll withhold everything from you and be so angry and in my own self. And I was known as psycho mom because my anger would come out if I couldn't control something. Yeah. You know, I would just yell and scream, and my true heart changes in it all too. Focusing so hard. I had a mentor at that time in my life that said, and then also the pastor that we sought counseling through, he said, Tanya, I can't promise you that your marriage will come back, but I can promise you that you can be a really changed person.
So
and
focusing on, again, it wasn't focused on fixing your husband.
No, I can't fix him. There's nothing that I can do to fix his issues. And to let go of that control from a certified control freak was like, okay, because I'm a natural fixer too. I want to help everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to do. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so insightful. But
so there you go.
we went there. And I told her, I asked her, I said, do you want me to stay away from anything? She said, nope, you talk about whatever you want. And I said to myself, if this comes up naturally, I wasn't going to push for it. I wanted to see where the conversation went. I don't prep any of my podcast people at all. They sit down, they're like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I do ask them, is there anything you want me to stay away from? Because I'm naturally curious. I mean, that's how I found out about years ago about your bonus daughter, that she even existed. You weren't in the place yet of talking out loud.
Yeah, I could barely talk out loud or get through it without crying at all or being a hot, blubbering mess. I
can't imagine.
You know, and now we're able to share our story without no tears.
And how's your husband with sharing the story?
Yeah.
Is he getting there? I know for a
He's
while.
Probably he's like, holy crap, you're on a Facebook Live, like, telling this to the world. I didn't ask him if I could, but he knows it's okay because in the end, it's all for the good. And also in respect to the mom, Maylee's mom, we have grown in our relationship too. And the coolest thing happened at Christmas. She comes, and Maylee always comes with all these cute little gifts for everyone at Christmas. It's usually cozy socks and pajamas. And she brings this, and she's got this huge smile on her face, and she has this bag, and she's just so excited. And I open it, and it's a shirt that says Bonus Mama. Now, I'm one of the very few people that try not to reference the step-parent as a step-parent. I changed that language as I was changing my life to refer to my own bonus mom as such. And it said Bonus Mama. She had to have that custom made. There's not a shirt out there. Her mom did that for me, and I couldn't, like, I texted her, and I'm like,
how proud she was to give that to you.
Yes, and I was just like, yep, that's it, because, you know, we have a connection and a love. Maylee and I do that little 5-year-old for guacamole, and
guacamole will bring the whole world together.
Yeah, and
just talk about that.
It's been a journey, and again, still not easy ever, and life isn't. And I think that's the whole facade that we have. And so I've been able to really start to embrace that every single day I wake up, it's a journey. I'm grateful for the fact that I woke up that day, and what can I do with it? Mm-hmm. What have I been called to do?
Like, what I love that you're willing to share your story is, I think a lot of coaches get, and I don't really think a lot of coaches have this, but they get perceived as like just, just talking about positive feelings and happy thoughts and gratitude and things like that, and you don't get to necessarily see the work behind it, and the story behind it very often, because it's not like your business isn't about you, it's about her, right? So it's about all the other, it's about you, it's about me, it's about everybody else. And when you're coaching people, it's not about you. So having the opportunity to tell your story is so good, because I think so many people are afraid to ask. Everything seems like it's going to be expensive or out of reach. But when you feel comfortable with somebody, you're like, man, I can relate to her. They'll be more apt to go to have a conversation with you. And I would imagine that, like me, if somebody's not a good fit, you're probably the first to tell them.
Yeah. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I know that. And I'm totally fine with that. And there's more coaches, there's more business, there's more abundance for everyone. Yeah. There's so much opportunity.
Well, I mean, the fact that you and I work together, I mean, we conflict, our services, what we do for the community conflicts. And now you're sitting on my executive planning committee and helping us with food, which I don't really care about. Yeah. I mean, I do, but I want people to eat, but I don't care.
Well, I'm like, let me help you with this, because it's where I can help.
Right. And then you put my face on your brand and yours on mine. And a lot of people would say,
a lot of people have said, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you up to?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, doesn't that dilute you? But look at how many people were in that room today. And nothing's diluted, and we got to talk to them about that. So I'm gonna.
We need to.
Yeah, I need to. I've gone over. It's fine. It was good. We had some good juicy tea in this one. But really, like when they talk about gossip and things, I think it's not always gossip, and sometimes it's just learning about each other and learning that connection and finding out what connects us. So speaking of which, where we find you, your collaborative that is called She Collaborative, and where do we find that? Instagram? Is it at She Collaborative?
Yes. Instagram and Facebook, both the same way. Website is work in progress, because I transitioned so quickly into this. Probably not, shouldn't have in retrospect, but it just happened the way it did. And so website is coming, and and then if you want to follow more of that personal journey, that's on on Instagram as Impractical, so impractical_woman, because I feel like my whole goal with that is that you have to get impractical. You have to be willing to do the hard things that society would tell you. You don't need to do that. You can just leave your husband. You don't need to save money. You don't need to coupon. No. And I don't really coupon anymore, but I have all the money saving apps.
When you need to,
Yeah, and what are you doing? Why do you have the careers you have, and that's just not normal and things like that. No, it's very impractical. But there's happiness in that. And that everybody's journey can look different, and I'm no judge of that.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your story. Yeah. I hope people go find you. It'll be linked in the work in progress would be a perfect name for your page.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, with a tiny little old lady, 100 and some odd years old, just being a work in progress still.
Yeah.
I agree. We'll link all of your places where people can find you, and you can also find her. She's speaking at U conferences. She's one of my breakout speakers, which is awesome. And she kept coming to me and saying, "I don't want to step on your toes or speak on something you're not going to." And I'm like, "No. You're doing it. I need you there. I need you to bring that same energy that you had standing on your own 2 feet and put it in that room, because people need it." So
so that topic's going to be about priorities and really defining those for your life, so that you can receive more abundance in your life and have the mindset of just being so firm in that.
You would have never gotten that bonus mom shirt and had that moment if you would have walked out away from everything. And that's the highlight of the story. So that's cool. All right, y'all, I'm going to go because I got to get to Des Moines tonight for my next event. So thanks for being on today.
Thanks, Kendra.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.